Deanna, this is Dr. Scott. I have some feedback for you on your Essay 2, your visual analysis draft. Quick reminder of what I'm looking for in this assignment. Looking for a thesis statement that's clear and focused, that you have good supporting reasons to support that thesis statement, and supporting reasons, I'm thinking of paragraphs. So the paragraphs have a clear connection to how they're helping you with the paper's overall argument. Looking for supporting details, so in your paragraphs are you using detail from the murals to support the paragraph's overall point. And for me, that also means, like, are you explaining how those details support your paragraph's overall point. Looking for organization and transitions. Do you have paragraphs arranged in a purposeful way? Is there a reason why you're beginning with one and then going to another? I'm also looking for integration of a couple paraphrases, MLA format, visual integrated into your writing, and reduction of be verbs in one of your paragraphs. So I think for the draft, for me, it's really about the supporting details right now. I might say something about the organization. I think you could do something a little bit more meaningful there. But for me, the thesis statement is pretty strong. Many of the murals do this, but two, the 37 Flood and the 40 Chillicothe Street mural, bring a sense of community to life with drastic differences in color, perspective, and reaction to the people in the murals. So I love that kind of focus. They bring a sense of community to life. That's great. Drastic difference in color. Like, I think you have a solid thesis statement. What's getting lost in the translation between here and your body paragraphs is that I don't see enough work in the paragraphs talking about how these items get across the idea of community. So I see, like in this paragraph here, it's about color, and you talk about differences in color, but I don't see much connection to the sense of community. Like, what does this have to, oops, yes, I'm going to play basketball, sorry about that. So how do these colors, like, what are they saying about the sense of community in this town? That it's serious, that we come together to help everyone out. That kind of conversation is not happening yet in the body paragraphs. It's just like there's color going on in the murals, but there's no connection to that overall community issue. So I also think setting up your paragraphs this way, where it's like the first thing you notice, the second thing you notice, I mean, I guess that works. I do think you could do better. Maybe there's one tactic that is more effective than others in actually getting the community thing across, because the paper's not about what you noticed, it's about community. And I could see, like, kind of as a cop-out, like, I have no way to, I think they're all equal. All these tactics are equal in getting across the sense of community, so I'm just going to choose what I noticed first, I guess. I guess I could live with that. But I do think that you can do better here. I think that there's probably one way that the mural gets across that sense of community that's more effective or more compelling than others. So if you start with drastic difference in color, and you're starting because that really you thought that was the most effective, then get rid of that there and make it about, I think, the most compelling way that Daffer gets across this idea of community is through the difference of color. The bigger point, though, is within the paragraph, make sure you're talking about that sense of community. It really does feel like it kind of gets lost. So we have a thesis statement, and then we have paragraphs that are not really kind of connected or tied to that thesis statement much at all. And so kind of where that issue really became, it was like, whoa, Deanna really kind of needs to focus on this issue, like explaining the connection to community, was here in this paragraph. So I'm reading along, and outside the frame is panic and fear, and inside the frame, despite the tragedy, it seems calming. And I just want to say, like, I love that you're writing about perspective. Like, it's something that folks do not write about enough with, particularly these two murals. People write about these two murals all the time. They kind of leave out that we're being asked to do very different things as people viewing the murals. One is inviting us in, and the other one is saying, stay away as you watch what's happening here. You get drawn in the middle, and then you kind of do this circle where you go all around the outside, but you're not really invited in. It's like, this is clearly something that's part of our past, which is a very different experience from the Chillicothe Street mural. So I love that you're writing about this. But I don't see in here where you're kind of taking us back and writing about community. So you have inside the frame, Chillicothe Street is flooded with 2 people in the boat just floating through the water. Outside the frame is panic and fear, and inside the frame, despite the tragedy, seems calming. This view highlights how scary and messy the flood was. There's nothing in there about community. And so I think there could be. But that's the heavy lift right now for this draft, is to get it where it needs to be. If you want to write about community, you need to explain how this stuff gets us to that sense of community that you think that the murals have. So that's my feedback right now, because that's a big lift, and other things will change as you kind of revise and write around that. So here's a kind of a to-do list for you. Connect body paragraphs back to the community idea. Explain how your details relate to community. Don't give us a bunch of details and say this shows how scary things were. Yeah, it can show scariness, but you need to say something about what that means for community. Explain details in terms of the paragraph's overall points. If you're saying that color is the most compelling way that they get idea of community across, make sure that those details are talked about in terms of that overall point. I think you could rethink the organization. If you end up with the same organization, I'm not going to throw a fit, but I do think you could do better there. I think you could complicate the argument a little bit. I do think you could say that there's some things that were more effective than others. Maybe color is more effective. I really think writing about perspective is interesting, and I don't know, that might complicate things a little bit. That maybe the 37 flood, it actually tells us something more interesting about our community than the 40s mural. I don't know. But you could complicate that argument a little bit so it doesn't get as repetitive. Also remember to address other items in the prompt. Organization, mention that a little bit. Paraphrases, integrating a visual, be verbs, and MLA formatting. All of that needs to happen after these 2 items. All right, Deanna, that's it for now. If you got questions, we'll have time in class next week to chat, and you'll have time to revise, but feel free to reach out to me before then.